You've probably seen someone raising donkeys and mules before, right? They're pretty common across many regions of Brazil. But there's one breeder who took this to a whole new level. This guy basically built a real factory of these animals, and that's not an exaggeration. Hundreds of donkeys and mules are born and raised there, all on an impressive scale. And that's what today's story is about. We're going to explore the largest donkey and mule breeder in Brazil and understand how this whole operation works. But first, it's worth remembering that the use of these animals goes way further back than most people imagine. Long before Brazil even existed, people in Bolivia, Peru, and Argentina were already using donkeys and mules to carry goods through rough and endless mountain paths. Inspired by that, Brazilian tropeiros, the mule drivers of colonial times, began doing the same. Back then, the country was huge, full of mountains, rivers, and wild trails. There were no real roads, and transportation depended entirely on animals. That's when mules, as donkeys and mules are called, became essential. And it wasn't a small thing, far from it. They carried gold from the mines of Minas Gerais, sugar from the mills of the Northeast, and coffee from the farms of the Southeast all the way to the coastal ports. In other words, Brazil literally grew on the backs of these animals. Between 1730 and 1897, trains of mules and donkeys crossed the country constantly. It's estimated that around 12,000 of them traveled the main trade routes every year, especially between Rio Grande do Sul and Minas Gerais. This constant movement ended up creating a living network across the countryside. Villages, trade posts, and even whole towns were born along these tropeiro routes. And from those paths came one of the most iconic traditions of rural Brazil, the tropeiro culture. Back then, traders sold everything imaginable: chickens, corn, cassava, horseshoes, while travelers stopped to rest at makeshift inns. Over time, those stops grew into small settlements. Thanks to the mules, the donkeys, and the roads they opened, thousands of Brazilian cities came to life. These animals became the link between countryside and coast, between rural work and national wealth. When people think of riding animals, the first image that comes to mind is usually a horse. But in many situations, donkeys and mules are even more valued, and there's a good reason for that. They're the result of crossing a donkey with a mare. The male is the mule, and the female is the hinny. There's also the reverse cross between a horse and a female donkey, which produces the bardodo, though that one's much rarer. These hybrids combine the best of both worlds. They have the strength and size of a horse, but the endurance and cleverness of a donkey. They're steady, balanced, and extremely careful where they step, perfect for trails, mountains, and tough terrain. On top of that, they're very economical. A mule eats about 25% less than a horse and needs far less water to stay healthy. They're not picky eaters either. They'll survive even on dry grass. That makes them ideal for arid and hard-to-reach regions. And to top it off, they're more resistant to heat and to many common diseases. While a horse might tire out quickly on a long journey, donkeys and mules seem built to handle the challenge. They manage heat better, lose less energy, and can walk for hours without slowing down. And here's something impressive. A mule can carry or pull up to half its own weight, while a horse rarely reaches 30%. That's why, even with all the modern technology and vehicles we have today, many people in rural areas still prefer to rely on donkeys and mules, especially those living on farms, in mountain regions, or in remote areas where access is tough. Besides being strong, these animals are incredibly smart and long-lived. There are records of mules working for more than 35 years, and some living up to 45 or even 47. They're gentle by nature, but they also have a sharp survival instinct. They know how to take care of themselves, avoid danger, and rarely get into trouble. All of that makes mules and donkeys some of the most respected and beloved animals in the rural world. And when it comes to tradition with these animals, it's impossible not to mention a family that turned it into a lifelong legacy. The Barnaby family from Indaiatuba in Sao Paulo's countryside. They're considered the largest breeders of donkeys and mules in Brazil, and with good reason. This story began more than a century ago and has already passed through 4 generations. It all started back in the 1920s with Barnaby, who bred donkeys and Mangalarga Marchador Maras to produce his first mules. It was more than a business, it was a passion. Over time, the work was handed down to his son, Tercio Barnaby, who, even in his 70s, still leads the operation alongside his grandson. Together, they run one of the most impressive breeding programs in the country. The family owns 4 farms dedicated entirely to mule and donkey production: Campo Bonito in Indaiatuba, Santa Helena and São Francisco in Arinhos, and São João in Garca. Altogether, these properties cover more than 380 hectares and house around 550 animals, all raised with exceptional care. The Barnabys are true experts in working mules, animals bred for everyday farm labor. Buyers can choose between trained animals ready for work or the so-called chucros, which are untrained, for those who prefer to break them in their own way. To give you an idea of the scale, in just 1 year, Tercio Barnaby sold around 600 mules and donkeys, all prepared for the toughest tasks in the field. His clients are spread across almost every corner of Brazil, from Mato Grosso to Acre, passing through Goiás, Para, Rondônia, and Amazonas. The demand is so high that some farmers even join waiting lists to secure one. It's no surprise that Tercio earned the title of the King of Mules. The Barnaby family's farms are true sanctuaries of rural breeding. Everything there is carefully planned down to the smallest detail: wide corrals, airy stalls, rich grazing fields, and specific areas for training. The handling of the animals is meticulous, with constant veterinary supervision and a balanced diet designed to keep them healthy and strong. One of the big secrets behind the Barnaby family's success lies in the genetics of their animals. For decades, they've been perfecting each crossbreeding, aiming to produce mules and donkeys with the ideal mix of qualities: strength, gentleness, endurance, and a smooth gait. The result is that their animals have earned nationwide fame, recognized as some of the best in all of Brazil. But breeding isn't the only thing happening there. The farms also raise Nelore cattle, which adds balance between tradition and profitability. It's a smart, well-structured system where everything connects in harmony, keeping the true spirit of the countryside alive. What stands out the most, however, is the family's devotion to preserving this culture. In a world increasingly ruled by machines and technology, they continue to prove that there's still space for the strength, intelligence, and nobility of mules and donkeys. More than just breeding animals, the Barnaby family keeps a century-old legacy alive, a cultural heritage that was almost lost over time. And if you made it this far, it's because you enjoyed this incredible story. So you know what to do. Hit the like button and tell us in the comments what you thought about the largest mule and donkey farm in Brazil. And hey, if you like discovering this amazing place, you're definitely going to love the video on your screen right now. It's about the biggest goat farm in the country. Click over there. It's one you can't miss. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.